It'll start someday.
That's okay.
All right. Hello, everybody. We are live. I am BMillzebub, and welcome to my channel. For tonight's Apostate interview, I have scientist Mel. How you doing, Mel?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm not doing too bad. Remembered how expensive razors were earlier.
Uh-huh.
The one I had, it was nicking at me when I was shaving, so time to get a new one. But we're here to talk about you and your channel. So I like to start out my interviews by having my guests talk about their channel. So
Awesome.
so what's your channel like?
What's my channel like? Well, it's a myriad of things related to the science stuff. So essentially, let me get the pop-out chat going because I like to talk, chat with people. That's kind of what I do on my channel as well. So I do primarily live streams. I am trying to do more pre-recorded things. But to where, because some people prefer shorter videos as opposed to live streams, so I'm trying to meet those particular demographics of individuals, because essentially I'm a science communicator, so I like to make my content as accessible as possible in order to meet the varying educational and diversity. People have all kinds of different ways that they learn. Some people like live streams. Some people just like, I just really want to watch something for 10 minutes. Thanks. So, or less, sometimes 5 minutes, little 5-minute bites. So I do have little 1-minute videos. They're not me talking, but they're other things, little scientific facts. So it goes from that, range all the way up to even 2-hour live streams talking about science, current events in science. I like to bust apart really, really bad science. So I often do that. I just rip it apart on how something's absolutely asinine and ridiculous. So it, particularly if it's an organization that pushes a lot of pseudoscience, I'm not that I don't put on the kid gloves with those. So yeah, so that's me.
All right. So how much fun or irritation would you have if I asked you? Oh, my camera just died. That's fantastic.
That's
But if I asked you to bust down something like my chakras are out of alignment and I need essential oils on my healing crystals, how badly do you want to beat me over the head with a baseball bat right now?
I usually just want to sit there and go, why do you think you need these things? That's usually where I go with that. You got to remember, I used to teach evolution in the Bible Belt to a bunch of farm kids. I had somebody come up to me once and go, scientists planted chicken bones in order to get rid of, and as a war against religion, and that's what they use for dinosaur fossils. I'm like, wow. So that's what I've heard. So when somebody's like, I've got to put oils on crystals in order to align my chakras, that's the same what I hear there. And then I just want to go, why do you think that? And so then they tell me, and they'll go into this painstaking detail of it's all conspiracy woven usually, or I was told that by this person who took my money at the fair that my chakras were the wrong color and my aura was the wrong color. And in order to get it the right color so I can be happy, then I got to rub these oils on this crystal and put it in my pocket, but particularly in a natural bag, and then shove it in maybe my bra to where it's touching my skin. And that way I can get the full effect of the resonating that comes from the crystal. And then I would sit there and go, okay, so why do you think you need that? So then usually then I try not to be rude. I genuinely want to know why people think about those sorts of things. I think because it's not mainstream, it's not too heavy mainstream. You don't see it on the TV a lot. You don't hear about it from the doctors. They think it's something special. and something extra that they're doing for themselves when they, so I find a lot of people buy into that stuff because they think they're doing something extra rather than what they actually need to do, which is something they don't want to do. So they find something that they think that they can do that's extra that they're willing to do in order to be happy rather than go to a therapist, because there's stigma associated with that. Or, so there's a lot of different reasons why people don't want to actually go down the avenues and the proper channels to get the things that they need to be happy or healthy or whatever reason. So usually I find out why.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really particularly care for going to the doctor too, or either. I mean, okay, I look at it this way, right? I hate being stuck with needles, but every year I suck it up and go to my doctor and get a vaccination anyway, because, I don't want to die and I don't want to be responsible for killing somebody. So be a responsible adult. But doctors are good people.
So, it depends. I have lots of thoughts on that too, and I can understand why certain people don't want to go to the doctor. It depends, but we can get into that in a bit. But I did not mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. It's like just kind of a broad overgeneralization. Doctors are good people. They're not out to, get all your money for big pharma with vaccines. I mean, you want to use, if someone wants to use that kind of logic, they need to apply it both ways. Yeah. Oh, well, my shaman or whatever doesn't want my money, but he charges you.
Yes.
I'm just saying, one is proven science, the other is proven bunk.
Yes, but it's something extra special that they're doing for themselves that science doesn't get to give them.
Yeah, if I ever slip into a coma and find out that my mom had a shaman or some shit use essential oils, I'm going to lose it. Yeah. I would probably immediately go back into a coma because just my brain would pop.
I wonder, maybe they would use, what's that called? I can't remember. I had it in my head and it went away. Acupuncture. Since you hate needles so much, perhaps acupuncture, if you were in a coma, would draw you out of it.
Probably.
These pinprick sensations all over your body. And then somebody whispering to you, "You're getting shots all over. Wake up. Wake up." Oh my God, he's awake. It's the acupuncture. It's a healing thing. No, it's horrible trauma.
See, I don't know if you've ever watched Parks and Recreation, but
I love that show, actually.
It's the Treat Yourself episode where they take Ben with them and he gets acupuncture and he's just tense and uncomfortable the whole time. That would be me. That would be me coming out of the coma.
I had a treat yourself with some of my other grad students who was working on my master's in science. Every Friday, we would go to this place at lunchtime because about an hour later, we were going to have to go to seminar. And seminar sounds wildly fascinating, doesn't it? They should really call it the most awesome science discussion you could have about amazing things, and you get free cookies. That would be, people go for the cookies in the cookie bars. They had strawberry cream cheese cookie bars, but we were required to go because that was part of the chemistry department. There was somebody. It was so funny. We decided that the one time we had to go every Friday, but once a month we would go for lunch at my favorite restaurant, and we'd share like a pitcher of white sangria. and then we drink it. Then we go to seminar and take a nap. But the reason why we started doing that, and we only did it once a month, and we did it on the talks that we knew were going to be horrible. They actually called in a guy who pushes pseudoscience. He was full of it. And we were sitting there going, he was basically saying turmeric cures all this stuff. This guy was saying it's in curry, and people in India, they don't get cancer so much. So he had made this wild correlation. And the stuff he put up on the screen was like Deepak Chopra crap and Ayurveda crap. And I'm like, you didn't screen this guy, did you? So I'm sitting there watching this. And everybody, that was the last time that guy was there. And so the professor that was in charge of seminar, man, he got ripped so hard. Man, he got ripped so hard. We're just like, why did you bring this Ayurveda dude? We're talking about turmeric and how it cures cancer and stops, colon cancer. Like, no. So yeah, after that, we were like, people aren't, they weren't taking it seriously all the time. So if it was a particularly bad talk, seminar was treat yourself day once a month. Treat yourself day. Treat yourself. Yes, that's the day. And my friends would be like, oh my God, yeah. We go have our yummy lunch. And then we would go drink a liter of sangria and then be sitting in seminar with our cookies and taking a nap. Man, it was great. Treat yourself day once a month with a terrible talk.
Oh God. So I kind of have to ask, you're a scientist. What is your opinion about all the pseudoscience-y crap on Netflix? Like there's a documentary. I can't remember for the life of me what it's called, but there are a bunch of not scientists pushing pseudoscience-y crap. Like Deepak Chopra actually is one of the people that makes a few appearances in it. And what's it called? Over the Edge. It's a flat Earth documentary.
Ah, okay. I haven't watched any of that.
Oh,
I just haven't. I just don't know that I can. There are certain things that I feel like cause me physical pain just from enduring on an audio-visual level. Maybe I'm one of those people that feels things when something's horrible. Like people who sing off key, like really bad off key. It's like my skin hurts. And I'm like,
don't ever listen to me sing then.
My skin hurts. I'm like, oh God. They're right in between the notes. It's like pick a note. It's like here are the keys of the piano, and you're not flat or sharp. You're in like the crack between the two notes. You've made a new note that doesn't exist. That kind. Flat, I'm like, oh, it's flat. Sometimes it's like, wow. So I'm kind of that way also with certain films, to where I'm just like, I cannot endure this. This is so bad. This is just, So I felt that way with Prometheus. That was so painfully awful. They were like, this is a science-based film. I'm like, this is crap.
Is it though?
It's like, this is like $1 trillion thing that they went and this dude is trying to start this. I'm like, he picked the dumbest scientist. So the only thing that I can think of is he picked the dumbest scientists on purpose in order to start all of this crap happening as his own personal. It's like a bunch of rich people are like, we're going to take scientists. They're really stupid and they're horrible at their jobs. So we're just going to take them and throw them on this alien planet and just let these horrible things destroy them while we watch from afar. This is good entertainment. That makes sense in my head for Prometheus. That's the only way I could watch that film, because I'm like, no self-respecting scientist would do any of the crap that they do in that film. So if I were to sit and watch the documentary run by people who know absolutely nothing, or just decide to ignore evidence whatsoever, at least I might could go, okay, they're just all stupid and this is comical. This is so bad. I might could do that. least unless they're trying to pawn themselves off as experts, at which point I would just be like, no. Then I would probably get irritated and want to burn down the building and get all Stephen Root in Office Space. I'm just going to burn down the building.
So if I ever see you kind of trying to think of a good word, skulking. If I ever see you skulking around muttering something about a stapler, maybe keep you away from the box of matches, or
maybe. But let me find that check that somebody slides and you're like, oh, look, I'm just going to grab this check before I burn down the building and go have a nice vacation. Cabana Boy, I asked for the Mai Tai. This is not what I ordered. I love that film because there's just so many times I feel like, yeah, I just don't want to do this today. So I just call in sick. I'm like, yeah, I just don't want to do this today. I don't like my job. I don't think I'll go back. But you kind of have to have those days sometimes. Those are what I call mental health days, where you're not particularly sick, but you're just sick of the job. Like, if I don't have a day off, my anxiety is just going to explode and I don't need to be at work. So, mental health day. I'm a fan of those.
No, they should be a thing.
Well, they should be. And people are like, well, did you go to the doctor? You're actually like, yes, I was. I was sick of this job. I'm sick of this person. I'm sick of this over here. I'm tired of having nightmares about paperwork. I need a day off. And I don't mean just the weekend. I need a day where I can sit at home knowing I don't have to be there and other people are there and they're going to be fine without me. Yes. It's like playing hooky. You need hooky days, but it's not, mental health days. Instead, maybe on a mental health day, I might go see Avengers Endgame again. I feel like I have mourned enough and I might need to go see it in IMAX because I didn't see it in IMAX.
Well, we're going to steer away from Endgame because I don't get to see that until tomorrow. So.
That's okay. No spoilers. I will be Doctor Strange. He knew how it all was going to play out, but he kept, he said, no spoilers, man. Be Doctor Strange.
Exactly.
He didn't even tell Tony how it was going to play out. He's like, if I tell you, it won't happen. He says that at one point. That's all I'm going to say. If I tell you, it won't happen. That's how I'll be Doctor Strange. If I tell you, it won't happen. So I can't do that.
All right. So this show is called Apostate Interviews. So I'd be kind of remiss if I didn't ask you: are you an apostate?
An apostate. I'm not certain what that term means. That's a new word.
Did you leave a religion?
Did I leave a religion? Yep. Well, that could be several different things. I'm not religious now. No. I was brought up Nazarene. I'm not that anymore. Nazarene, if you hadn't checked out that, go look them up. They're in between Baptist and Pentecostal. Baptists are what we call the bench warmers. They sit there and they listen and they have their own Bibles, and then they highlight, they try to follow along whatever the lesson is, and they get their little highlighters. They'll highlight, what the minister's talking about that day. Sometimes some of them don't even do that. They just sit there and listen. And then you have the Pentecostals who believe you can only be saved if you speak in tongues. That's how you get the Holy Spirit in you, once you start speaking in tongues of your ancestors, then you're saved. So we were Nazarene. Sometimes we would be bench warmers, but sometimes we could speak in tongues. But speaking in tongues was not required to be saved. I actually started classes to become Nazarene. And after I saw this actually happened. After I saw what they believed, I'm like, I don't really want to do this. I went all the way through the classes. I completely embarrassed my grandparents who I don't know if they're Nazarene still. I completely horrified them. And my mom was like, you went to all these classes. I'm like, have you read what they talk and what they think? She's like, no. And I'm like, this is horrible. And I was the kid like in Sunday school who would sit there and they would say, men can't have long hair. Girls have long hair because men are not supposed to look like women and women are not supposed to look like men. I said, but Samson though. And they go, well, I said, he had long hair. He was supposed to have long hair because, his hair was like God's blessing for him to be all strong and stuff. And they're like, well, but that was God's blessing. And then I say, why would God make a blessing a sin? And then, I was the kid everybody hated. Nobody liked being my Sunday school teacher. I actually was in Bible quizzing. I went to state 4 times. So that was Genesis, Exodus, Matthew. Genesis, Exodus, Mark. No, it was just 3 times. Genesis, Exodus, and Mark. No, Matthew. No, Acts. That's what it was. Genesis, Exodus, Matthew, and Acts. Yeah, so it was 4 times. It's been a while. So I went to state 4 times for Bible quizzing. It was the New International Version. If you want to go King James, it's a completely different thing. So we were NIV folks at that church. Then later on, I decided to try Baptist for a while, see how they are. I didn't like the minister. I thought he was really, really mean. And his daughter was having an affair with the youth pastor. And rather than keep that hush hush, he actually fired the youth pastor. Okay, whatever. I get it. Youth pastor was married and his wife was pregnant. So that was a hot mess. But the pastor's daughter, he came out on a Wednesday night service and said, I know you guys understand I have fired so-and-so. That's because he's had extramarital affair with my daughter. And I'm like, what is wrong with you? And he goes, and so we're all just going to pray for her. And I'm like, you have just shamed your own child in front of the entire congregation. I hate you now. I was so angry. So I pulled out my Bible and I walked up to him and I started quoting scripture at him about how he's supposed to, because in Romans it talks about how you're not supposed to go to church until, you handle your outside issues with your brother. And I'm like, how is it that you're able to stand up here and try to lead all of us when you got stuff going on at home? You need to be there and praying for your daughter. What's wrong with you? I didn't go to that church after that.
I'm not sure how welcome you'd have been after confronting the pastor, but it kind of sounds like he had it coming. I mean,
that. Then I tried Lutheran for a little bit. They're pretty interesting. Then I started checking out alternate types of religions. I thought, you know what? This is all pretty cool. Let me see what's going on with Santeria and voodoo. So I thought I would just do that. So I had a friend of mine who taught anthropology. And so she ran a spiritual shop. And so I'd go in there and I'm like, well, I'm going to check out this stuff, see what's up. Because I always had like weird things happen to me. Come to find out it was sleep paralysis. And I didn't know that was the thing existed until about 8 years ago. So all that time I thought that my house was haunted and we were possibly possessed because that was when my sleep paralysis was. Happened to my sister, happened to my mother. Correlation, causation. When you're a little kid, you're like, what the heck is going on? My mom's having these horrible visions of this thing, and my sister's having the same thing, and these ghosts are coming out of our, like, all over the place, and it's like House on Haunted Hill, man. That's just a horrible example. That's sleep paralysis for me. So that's what it was. It felt like that for me. So if you're experiencing that throughout your life, all the way into adulthood, and you don't know what that is, you're like, crap, man, I'm cursed or something. So I check out voodoo. Let's give that a go. And so I go get candles. I can tell you guys what candles you need to, like, get rid of like bad energy if you need. I learned, I have books over there. So I still have all my books from that because I read a lot about it. I've got the mystical books of Moses as well, and all of the symbols that they used when they went into war. So if you're curious about that, might be cool tattoos, but they're all like talismans. So I'm well read on that. Then I got into old Gnostic texts like the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Nag Hammadi. Then I dug into all of that. And I was like, let me incorporate that with some of this voodoo stuff. And then you get Santeria. So I'm like, well, I tried that for a while and I thought that was pretty neat. It's neat. I had an old church organ. So I put all my candles on there, freaked out everybody. It was great. Oh my God. I was like, oh, that's just my altar. Don't worry about it. It's a church organ. There's a big old candle right there. There's a scary looking skull with stuff dripping on it. It was like the coolest looking thing ever. Like, don't touch it though, man. That's bad luck. So I went from that to Catholicism.
Oh.
So I went from that to Catholicism. The Catholic faith is pretty. It's very, very pretty. They have all these beautiful style types of rituals. And so I went to all of the classes to be Catholic, and I became Catholic. I'm not really Catholic now. But that's the thing about Catholicism. Once Catholic, always Catholic. You have to be like, completely excommunicated from the church. So if I died right now and there is a heaven or hell, I just hang out in purgatory for a while and be like, okay, we're going to let you to heaven now. So I can't go to hell. I'm sorry. So if hell is real, I've been consecrated by the Catholic Church, guys. And I used to use holy water on my voodoo Santeria altar, which was completely acceptable. I asked a priest. So, because they were all saint candles. You can use saint candles. Saint Michael, that was my archangel. Huge freaking candle. My dad was horrible, and I was praying about my dad, and the candle on the top just exploded, and the glass flew across the room. I'm like, well, I guess that worked. So I just equated that with, like, rather than heat and me stuffing all these herbs in there, I'm saying, like, I've stuffed all these herbs in there and I've oiled the outside of the candle and then I've lit it, and it's just like, and it just broke in a perfect circle in the top and flew and landed on like one of my rugs, and it burned a circle in it. And I'm like, that is like the coolest thing ever. It was like the craft. It's like one of those moments. And I was like, I did that. No, I just burned stuff really, really well. But so, yeah, I don't do that either. So
I don't know if you all can hear the helicopter in the background, but if you can, sorry. Well, I mean, I live like 2-3 blocks away from the hospital, so sometimes life flight will, go that way. But
exciting day for the wrong reasons, I guess.
I mean, either that or it's going to the airport a couple miles that way. Not that any of you know what direction that way is.
It's that way over there. I get it.
That's the one. So you were Catholic for a while?
I was for a few years. Well, for a big old chunk, yeah. I tried to be like a super Catholic. That's what people don't understand. If you have somebody who's joining a religion, they're going to be like super that religion for a little while. They'll be like, I want to know about this. I'm going to go to this event. I'm going to be like the superest Catholic that ever was. And so you learn and you're like, oh, now I want to do, and like, I want, like, they have people who, I think it was like, once a month, they don't want Jesus to be by himself, and Jesus being like the body, the little, the thing, the wafer. And so they have a special house to put Jesus in. It's like right behind the altar. It's like this really pretty little gold thing. And so you could sit there and people will sign up for shifts to sit with Jesus so he won't be by himself. I thought that's just really cool. I was like, that's a cool idea. Y'all really, really take this seriously. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be a super Catholic. I'm going to sign up and I'm going to sit with Jesus because you know what? Why not? We're going to hang out and you just sit there. You can't talk to him or nothing because then well, you can sit there and say, I'm praying. But if I was to talk with Jesus, I'm like, so Jesus, do you get bored being in that little cold box? What do you think about? Is there like a TV beam coming to me in my mind? How are we gonna have it? So I just, but see, that would be me. That would be me. And so I'm just sitting there and there, but it's a very beautiful and pretty religion. And it induces a lot of feelings of this is important. I'm part of something amazing. And this makes me feel like I'm part of a beautiful thing. And I get to be the person who gets to watch and make certain he's okay. And no, because there's people who have stolen the host and stuff like that. That have tried to take it, and there's the myths are that it started to bleed in the bag that they were carrying and stuff like that. And so they use stories like that to say this is important. So you feel like you're it gives you a bit of more of a meaning, and it feels endearing. So I
Yeah.
bought into that for a while. So yeah.
Yeah. The thing you're talking about is called Eucharistic adoration. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I don't know, maybe your church was being weird and, just had it in a tabernacle, but the church I went to would have it in what's called a monstrance. Basically, it's this gold thing that, has a base and goes up, and it's, in kind of the shape of a really bright star, and the host is at the center. So that's what it's called. But
Yeah, we didn't have anything that special. It stayed in the tabernacle.
yeah. Tell you one crazy story I heard from my youth minister, and I frankly doubt the truth behind the story. Apparently, there was a homeless family, and they were hungry, and they broke into a Catholic church, I guess, and broke into the tabernacle and, ate some of the shitty unleavened bread. And apparently, they weren't able to sleep for like 2 days afterwards or something. I, I don't believe this. Like at the time, I was gullible enough, but
Yeah.
now I'm like, I want to kill somebody if I don't sleep for a day. And I've been awake for 2 days before, and
Yeah.
it was considerably less than pleasant to be around, not to mention just how hard it is to stay up for even a day.
Yeah.
So I doubt the truth of that story for some reason now. But yeah, no, Catholics believe some crazy stuff about the consecrated body and blood of Jesus.
Yeah. Their Bible's bigger. Some people don't understand that the Catholic Bible has entire books that were taken out by King James.
Yep.
So you go through, and there's so many people. When I was growing up, there were so many people who didn't understand the vast differences between the versions of the Bible.
Oh
The
yeah.
King, for the Bible quizzing that I was a part of, we used the New International Version because it was an easier read than King James. Baptists tend to use King James, but we use the NIV because we were legit studying it. We had quizzing practice that we would sit there. You want to talk about how long, a cubit is? I gotcha. You want to talk about the ridiculously long families that they list in Genesis? Man, I really don't want to have that conversation, but I did it. So, it's just, but it's weird. It's weird that a lot of people don't understand the stark differences between the versions of the Bible. And I didn't even realize that the Catholic Bible had so many extra chapters, because like I guess I better read these too. But see, the thing that I also found interesting is when I was talking to leaders in the church, priests, I was like, why don't you guys recognize like the gospel according to Thomas, the gospel, the Apocryphon of Peter? So that's actually reading. I was well read in religion. I actually took religion at university as well. even all the way to Shinto, Zoroastrianism. I've read quite a bit of the Bhagavad Gita, a bit of the Quran. So I'm pretty well read when it comes to just generalized religion and the Torah, mystical books of Moses. I have those. So that's like that's part of the sect of people who would wear the red string around their wrist. That was a fancy fun thing for a while, with particular like Madonna and Lindsay Lohan. They were trying to cleanse their spirit, and when that red string fell off, they had been successful. So, but just stuff like that, and somebody was like, Mel chose to be Catholic. I noticed that in the chat. Pine Snake, hold on, Mel was Catholic by choice. I was also Santeria and Voodoo by choice for a while I was Catholic. So just let that in your mind, let that simmer for a bit, because it parallels. People don't understand the whole voodoo. Gosh, here we're gonna get into New Orleans now. I love New Orleans, and I know a lot of the history there. Monty and Hannibal from the shit show. Monty I've known for a very long time, and we always hang out when I go to New Orleans. But I've taken so many tours, historical tours. I've learned a lot, having had practice a little bit of voodoo and Santeria on my own. Voodoo and Santeria are so intermingled with Catholicism that you can buy a saint candle. And part of the reason for that has to do with the appropriation of taking the Catholic faith into the African Orisha faith. So when people were stolen, or taken as slaves, they were forced into Catholicism. And so they didn't want to do it. So they learned about Catholic saints. Catholic saints behave a lot like African Orishas. So you might see a particular saint and go, oh, look, here is Saint so-and-so. Well, that's Oshun in the African Orishas. Here's Saint so-and-so. Well, that's Elegba in the African Orishas. And so there's a lot of overlay. So they felt like they could pray to these Catholic saints without betraying their own faith, because there was so many similarities to their polytheism and the Catholic saints. And so they would be able to go ahead and practice their religion while still kind of meeting expectations of being Catholic. So there's a lot of overlay there. So you can get away with quite a lot. So
things I didn't even know about my former faith.
Yes, forced Catholicism is a thing, especially for Haitian people and those who were stolen from Africa. It's and they just ended up generating voodoo from that, based on the African Orishas resembling the Catholic saints so much that they felt like it wasn't a betrayal. So, yeah, I read and I practice.
Evidently.
And I practice too. I choose to be a lot of things sometimes, just out of the sheer curiosity of what does this do? But that's inherently my scientist nature. And we're like, oh, would you like to try this? What is it? Oh, it's this. Okay, I'll give that a go. Or, oh yeah, no, I don't want to do that. So, but usually I'm a try it kind of person. So.
All right. So what got you to start making videos? I mean, were you just not getting enough as a science educator or scientist?
Well, let's see. At the time I actually just got my anniversary email from Patreon and so I didn't start doing Patreon until about, I think maybe, where are we, in May? It wasn't until like 5 or 6 months. Well, no, it's a bit longer than that. It was much longer than that. I didn't start doing Patreon until maybe 8 or 9 months after I started this. So I started, what really kind of bothered me is I was reading about science statistics with the National Science Foundation. And every few years, they do a science literacy type of study. And they see not only just how literate people are, but what their perceptions are of scientists, what they believe, what they don't believe, what they think is true, what they don't think is true. It's always the same questions. It's always the same questions, and you can check it out. And at the time, it was approximately 23% of the U.S. thought that the sun revolved around the Earth. That was almost 1 in 4. 1 in 4 people think the Earth is the center of the universe. 1 in 4. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. So that was 2016. So around 2017, around 2017 or so, that summer, I think I started live streaming on Periscope. I've only been doing YouTube for about a year. People are like, you need to be doing YouTube. But see, at the time, I didn't know how to stream to multiple platforms. I literally thought, okay, I'm going to do Periscope. Okay, now I'm going to do the same exact show on Facebook. Okay, now I really don't want to do another show. So I'm just going to upload one of these I already recorded on a YouTube and then watch it that way. So that's how it was. So I would spend a lot more time doing that. So for a while, if you go, and I think I put some of my early stuff on YouTube. If you wanted to go look at the early days, like playlist, you will see me sitting on a couch, holding up pieces of paper like this, because I didn't even have like gear. So I would just like write my stuff on a piece of paper and I'd hold it up. Okay, now we're going to talk about this. But that was the early stuff in the early grassroots. And it was largely due to the fact that it shocked me so much at how illiterate not only just the US, but the whole world is when it comes to basic, fundamental scientific knowledge. And I wanted to be able to do it in a way to where I'm not saying, guys, everybody's stupid. Gosh, how stupid everybody is. Because that, I see a lot of that on social media. I'm like, that's not helpful at all for me. Deep down inside, sometimes I want to be like, oh my God, another one of these people. But going that route is counterproductive to what I want to do. So I don't sit here and go, well, these people are stupid. Sometimes I'll poke a joke every once in a while. I'll just drop a little joke here and there. But most of the time, it's just I'm just trying to get accurate information out there and be louder than the people that are saying the horribly wrong things. And that's quite a hill I got. There's a lot of people spreading misinformation. We had a whole election just based on that. So
a little bit. little bit.
Yeah. So yeah. But now the recent numbers, you'll be happy to know that it's now 28% of the US thinks that the sun revolves around the earth. So it's getting worse. Just FYI, it's getting worse. You can check out the numbers. National Science Foundation, science literacy, science perception. 2017, it was 2018, I believe. They do it every couple years.
Yeah, that is horrifying because there's so many good channels you can go and watch on YouTube to learn actual science. Like,
they're not doing it.
Holy shit! I'm talking to one of them right now.
It's just, well, thank you. I'm glad you like my stuff, man. It's just, it's hard because, that's the draw. How do you get the draw? How do you draw somebody and say, do I really want to learn about quantum entanglement? Do I really want to learn about, this? Yeah, gosh, I think this tomorrow. I didn't do my trailer. I try to do trailers, but my job has had me so freaking overwhelmed. So tomorrow I'm doing junk food addiction. So last Saturday. Gosh, see, I don't even remember what I did last Saturday. My weeks feel like I'm in like some kind of time warp. I'm like, that feels like 2 years ago. What did I don't remember what I did last Saturday. That must have been a great weekend. This is why I use YouTube. One time somebody asked Einstein for his phone number and he said, "Hold on, let me look it up." They go, "You're Einstein, you don't know your phone number?" And he goes, "I wrote it down so I wouldn't have to remember it." I write my stuff down so I don't have to remember it, guys. Like for real. God. I got a new phone, so now I have to sign in on the freaking. This is a butt. Anyway, I'm gonna use the phone that works still. I for real just got a new phone. I'm genuinely curious. I don't know what I talked about last weekend, and that's bothering me. So I don't know if I'm old or what. So
sometimes I have trouble remembering what I did 5 minutes ago. So
it was love. I talked about love. Well, crap. What does that say about me? I forgot about love. Oh well. Who needs that? Love. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. No, that would be war, but that's okay.
I probably would have gone with "What is love, baby? Don't hurt me."
Oh my goodness. I think, people kept saying, what is love? And I'm like, I kept thinking of Freddie Mercury. This thing called love, I just can't handle it. And I actually got into like the symptoms of love and the things that it does to you. And, Freddie was right. You get a little stupid. You get a little bit stupid. Part of your like decision making portion of your brain shuts down when you're around somebody that you're particularly enamored with. So yeah, you get a little bit dumb and you don't remember some things. That's why it's probably hard for people to like, talk to somebody they're attracted to because they legitimately cannot, that part of the brain just, it doesn't work so great.
That'll be no. I will definitely use that excuse next time I'm jabbering incoherently around a woman I'm attracted to.
I'm sorry, my brain is not working right now. It is not your fault. Let me just go walk over here for a second, do some jumping jacks, and come back, and I'll be all right. Like, do two. All right. What were we talking about? Crap! Like, I gotta go here. Let me write down the things I want to say when I'm away from you, and then I'll hold it up on a piece of paper. This is what I mean to say to you.
Oh. So here's what I think might be a good one for you. Is there anything you've done on your channel that you're the most proud of?
Oh my goodness. Jeez. There are quite a few things. I have to say, a personal proud thing is my episode on relativity. And the reason for that is because at that point in time, when I started to do the science communicator thing, my viewers pick what I talk about every single time. All of the topics on my Saturday show are all viewer generated. And then they vote, and then I do research, and then I put on a show. So they do all of that. They say, I want to learn about this because that's the point. I'm like, that's my draw. What do you want to learn about? You pick, and I will talk to you about it, and I will let you know what it is. That's what I feel is pretty important, is that they get to pick what it is that I explain. So relativity was a challenge for me because at the time I didn't have a really terribly cool setup. I was still getting my sea legs, and space time was still extremely elusive to me. That was one of those concepts. I'm like, I don't get space time at all. I'm like, how can time be like an actual thing, like a holding thing, like a thing that has matter or something they don't even know yet? I'm like, I just can't, you know. So I had to learn about relativity and special relativity in order to explain it. So that was a hefty week for me. So I looked up everything that I could about relativity, and I taught myself about relativity in order to explain it to other people. And so I'm quite proud of that episode because I learned relativity right before I taught other people about it. So, because it was hard for me. I wasn't really super awesome at physics, and it wasn't until that I overcame a fear of physics before I was like, okay, physics really isn't scary. It's not as scary as I thought it was. Now when we get into, oh gosh, the calc 3 stuff for physical chemistry, I still have nightmares about that. But I'm like, yeah, no. Matrix math, I don't even want to talk. They're like, but it's so easy. I'm like, I can't. Please don't make me put numbers in boxes again. And I don't want to tell you which direction that this particular molecule is facing, whether it's mirror or opposite. It's just, I'm like, no, don't. That was, I don't want to talk about that class. That was inorganic. Inorganic was horrible. So, but anyway, but yes, math and physics and all that kind of fear is real. So I'm proud of that episode because of the fact I got to learn relativity. And that's one of the things that I love about what I do is because I get to learn about stuff sometimes that's not my strongest suit. I'll still do the best I can, and and I still think I do a pretty good job because I'm pretty freaking thorough, but I still get to learn about stuff as well in the process, which is amazing. So, yeah.
I like that. That was really good. Yeah, no, I love to watch like all kinds of different science shows on YouTube here. Like some of the most frequent science channel I watch is Physics Girl.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I've heard of her. Yeah.
Yeah, she's got a really good channel. Like she'll do practical stuff and occasionally talk about the theoretical aspects of it. It's really like her channel. She's um but yeah, no, pretty like any actual science channel I'm gonna enjoy.
Yeah.
If I ever came across a Deepak Chopra's channel, I'd probably want to throw myself off the roof.
Oh my goodness. I've thought about doing like a parody channel where I just take some of the crap that he says and I'm just like parody it. But then I sometimes I sound so convincing people don't know that I'm actually joking and not serious. Um, and so I'm afraid that they would be like, well, she said this and this, and it just sounded so convincing, so it's got to be true. And I really have a genuine fear that if I started doing parody stuff, because sometimes I read Onion articles and they sound just entirely too real because of current world circumstances. So I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, yeah,
Like,
I thought that was real. It's not. It's the Onion. But my God, how far have we fallen?
I mean, it was 2 years ago. I made sort of a joke, sort of, but not necessarily really a joke, that the Trump administration would run the Onion out of business.
No,
because I didn't think they'd be able to keep up.
I think the Onion just needs to up their game. Maybe Trump is actually, aliens. Get the aliens guy involved. I'm not saying it was aliens. It was aliens. Get the aliens guy involved. Let's do a whole channel just with the aliens guy explaining why our administration currently is the way it is.
That'd
I
be
might watch
fantastic.
that just for like entertaining purposes.
Hashtag Heathen has a question for you. SciShow just did an episode on the first approved malaria vaccine. Have you heard about it? And I'll add on, what do you think about it?
Okay. The only thing I know about malaria right now, and this might be the case, is that they were introducing it into mosquitoes and releasing these mosquitoes into the wild to where they could counter the population of malaria carrying mosquitoes with mosquitoes that carry the vaccine. I don't know if that's the same thing, but that's what the last time I read about that was a few years ago. So if there's new stuff, I would think maybe it'd be an expansion on that. They were doing some research about that. I think they had talked about it when I was in London at the Natural History Museum as one of the forefronts of insects and malaria, as far as what the research was going to make genetically modified mosquitoes that would carry the vaccine to kind of counter the populations of the others. Is that what that is? I'd have to. This is an actual vaccine being distributed in 3 countries. Huh. Wow. I will. So, is the Gates Foundation a part of that? I'm curious because they, that's just pro tip for anti-vaxxers out there. You can get your child vaccinated for free via the Gates Foundation. They fund so much money, you don't even really have to pay for vaccinations for your kids. You can just, go to the health department. They give money there to where you can literally get your kids vaccinated for free through the Gates Foundation. As much as y'all hate Microsoft, he actually does put money back into things, not like Steve Jobs. I'm just saying. And I wonder, because I know the Gates Foundation had put some money towards trying to slow the rate of malaria in those particular countries. So, people hate on the Gates Foundation, but at least they do actually try, whatever that means. Now I got to look up this malaria stuff.
Oh. DRP is asking, have I already asked about the HIV trials success? I hadn't heard anything about HIV trials.
I haven't either. All right, so test malaria vaccine to roll out in Ghana and Kenya. Huh. World Health Organization Q&A, the malaria vaccine. World Health Organization, people got to be careful with some of the stuff that they post because it's, and I say normally they're a very, very, very good source, but people misrepresent their stuff all the time. Oh, okay. So yeah, it is an actual vaccine. They're not putting it in mosquitoes. They're just okay. Well, that's also nice too. I know they were trying to counter it somehow to make it more accessible for people in more remote areas by injecting or like genetically modifying mosquitoes in order to carry the vaccine to counter the ones that carry the disease. Huh. Interesting. So the HIV trials, were they looking at trying to not eradicate, but eliminate an HIV infection?
I'm not too sure. That would, I don't know. Maybe DRP knows a little bit more about that than we do, because I've not heard anything about it.
Okay, so there are clinical trials. They're always doing clinical trials. I mean, there's a lot of that. Research toward a cure trials. No, I wouldn't trust that site. I do know, I did do an episode on HIV. And one of the things that they were looking at is the fact that there is a particular population of individuals who are kind of immune to HIV. They lack the receptor that HIV needs in order to attach to T cells to infect them. And so how they came across this particular discovery is somebody was donating bone marrow to a person that had an AIDS onset type of cancer. So essentially, when your immune system starts to shut down, you're more prone to cancer because normally your immune cells can take out your cancer. And so when they did the bone marrow transplant, they saw that the guy's HIV just died out and his T cell population started to pop up again. And so that's when they discovered that certain individuals are technically immune to HIV because they lack the cell receptors for it to be able to attach to the cell and infect it. So I know that there was some research moving towards that, and they know which gene is associated with it. They just have a modified version of that gene that would produce that particular receptor. So bone marrow transplants, I think, were the way that they were trying to go at one point in time to be able, or at least to be able to generate T cells lacking that receptor, and then the virus just dies off because there's nothing for it to infect. So the trials that showed no transfer of HIV, but sorry, I just hit my desk, between gay couples. Yes, that one. Okay, yeah, I did talk about that trial. A lot of that has to do with the antiretroviral, well, basically the antiviral medication that that they would give the other partner of the person who was infected. And of course, they continue to use protective measures in addition to that. But the antivirals that they have for when once a person finds out that they've been exposed to the virus, these antivirals are very, very effective in reducing the risk of actual infection. They still might carry the virus, but it's not likely for it to infect cells, and it can die off over a period of time if it's not infecting anything. So yeah, it's cool. It's cool. Science. Yay. That's why we need science communicators, so we can break all this stuff down, man. I did a whole episode on HIV. I have to say, that is not my favorite episode because I go back and watch my stuff so I can learn and grow and do better. And it gets very dry in portions because I get into the history of HIV. So it's a very, very longer episode. So I get into the time frame and what the current science is. But yeah, I talk about that trial in that one. So yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that some of my stuff gets pretty dry too because I hate math, but I like numbers. If that makes literally any sense. So like sometimes I'll go into like demographics and like I think I've already released this video. I'm not too sure. Yes, it's my religion is geography video.
Okay.
Yeah, I go into different religious demographics in the world, to kind of show that the premise at least has validity, So, like, if you're born in Western Europe or America, you're highly likely to be some kind of Christian. And if you're in Japan or born in Japan, it's highly likely that you're going to be either Buddhist, Shinto, or both, because there's a lot of people that practice both. So I kind of go into the weeds of demographics a little bit just to establish kind of a baseline for the premise that where you're born is closely tied, not intrinsically tied, but closely.
Aren't you glad you were born American?
Yeah, so I could be born Catholic and, well, raised Catholic and hate gay people for something that's totally out of their control for a God that I had no real reason to believe in.
Yeah.
Yay!
Yay. And
I
be
was a
part
dick
of
of a religious person, actually. That was awful.
well, that's okay. Learn and grow, learn and grow. That's what you
Yeah.
got to. I used to be a person that wasn't certain that gay people could raise children without influencing them to be one way or another. And and some people would misinterpret that as saying, you don't want gay people to have kids. And I'm like, no, that's not it. I didn't know, because I'd only been brought up in seeing, parent, dad, mom situations. And that's not always the best case either. And that can screw up a kid, particularly the relationship. But when I was trying to figure out things, about, because I didn't have a problem with gay people, but I know it's a homophobic, and they're trying to get away from phobia terms. It's not a productive thought process to go, well, if two gay people raise a kid, is that going to influence them in some kind of way? And I was trying to think, did my mom and dad influence my sexuality? And so that was more of a reflection of me trying to figure out, how did I become this way? And does that play a role? Than it was, I don't want gay people to have kids. But I'm like, it just blew my mind, because I'm sitting there, I'm like, what? And then I started to think, what forms sexuality? And so I started to read more about it. And so that's the thing. People don't read more about stuff. They don't look at the evidence. And so once I was like, this is what forms sexuality. These are the problems that kids have associated with mom and dad households or single parent households. Where's just a dad? Where's just a mom? Where it's two dads? Where it's two moms? These are all the issues that kids have in general. In sexuality, there may be some environmental triggers, but it's not going to be from the parents so much, unless the parents are oppressing the kid to not be who they are. Then that causes trauma and damage. So, once I read up more, I was like, okay, now I can make an informed decision, because it's always been this way. And I'm not saying this way is the correct way, but now I can thoroughly understand gay people can have kids. Let them have kids. Let them adopt kids. We need kids in healthy homes, and you can have, it's not the sexuality of the people that make a home healthy. It's how you treat the kid and how you treat each other. So, but that wasn't so transparent for me many years ago, before I started, going, and learning more and digging down at university and stuff like that. Because, education really does open up your mind to things that, and it teaches you how to find the correct answers, And a lot of people don't know how to find the correct answers. And that's just as important as, getting the information. Is it the correct information? Where did you get it from? Are you certain that's right? Did you look at the sample size of this study? Where was it published? What are the, but they don't know all that. And so education is extremely important. And so I actually have given talks on how to read a scientific, I've actually in-person talks on, this is how you read a scientific paper. And this is how you can learn more from it. So yeah, so
I'm curious. I'm curious if you have any videos like that on your YouTube, teaching how to read a scientific study.
I do talk about what peer review means and the difference between experiment and review papers, because people think if it's peer reviewed, then that means it's definitive evidence. You can have peer reviewed things that are not definitive, but just exploring a question. So review papers can do that. You have opinion papers sometimes and editorials that can appear in journals, and some people will cite that as evidence. So it's important to understand the two different things when you're going through and trying to cite evidence. I had recently had a back and forth, probably about a couple of weeks ago, with someone who was using one experimental paper, and it was really just a review paper. It was a review paper, which is just a glorified opinion. It's a glorified opinion. And it was saying essentially that psychological research cannot be reproduced and therefore is invalid. That's just basically what it was saying, that they couldn't replicate a lot of the numbers from certain studies. They took 100 studies from 3 different journals. And so they couldn't replicate a lot of the same data. Therefore, you have an issue to where you're not going to get as, these tests that they're using are therefore just not really valid. And that was this person's standpoint. But having done, I've done science research where this is what the data is. Here's our graph. Here's our chart. These are the 2 variables involved. We increased this decreased. Science is, here are our 2 variables. This is how they're connected. Okay, now we're going to take one of these and put this variable over here. This is how they're connected. But when you're dealing with people and you have a particular disorder manifest, all right, or an educational disorder, because I did education research, you have so many different variables affecting a person on why a thing shows up. You can't have a reproduction of any particular study based on the standard person. That doesn't work. People are walking chaos theory. I mean, we really are. We have our genes. We have our environment. We have the weather. We have our moods. We have hormones. We have all of these other things that happen that can cause a particular thing to show up or go away. You have trauma. You have triggers for people with PTSD, veterans who cannot be around fireworks because it reminds them, it triggers their PTSD where they think they're in battle again. But that's not the only thing that might happen that might trigger it. It could be other things. So to expect a psychological study to be repeated in the same aspect that you would be running a DLS machine or checking the concentration of a solution or hitting an element with light and going, here it is, this is the frequency that it absorbs. It doesn't work that way for people because you have 9,000 different variables as to why a particular thing manifests. And what you have to do is figure out what's the big thing that's causing this thing to happen. This is the trend we see in this one big thing that's happening, but there's like these 9,000 other things that are contributing factors as well, but we see this running trend. So no, you can't replicate a lot of the same stuff. So that was my position. I'm like, you are basing your entire stance on a review paper where it's literally a glorified opinion. And here's Harvard saying it's bunk because they made these 3 fatal flaws in their stats. And they're like, but here's their response. I'm like, but it's still an opinion. This is still going pretty well in regards to psychological research. People are, they're benefiting from these types of treatments. So shush. But, you can't compare that. You also got to look at what kind of research it is. But see, if you don't know that, but, hey, how to read a paper. I think I did. I could probably do one. On how to go through and read a paper. But check out the peer-reviewed one. That might be a good starting point. And then depends on the paper, but they're usually written very similarly. And so I do talk about how to determine if a study is good or not in that particular episode. That was probably about a year ago. But yeah, the science of peer review. Give that a go and see. I think I do talk about how to read a paper a little bit, but I can make a shorter version if you're more into shorter videos.
Mark Caesar asks, is that where the idea of metadata becomes useful?
Yes, metadata is nice. And that's usually how they're able to say the largest study ever done on kids with autism in vaccinations. It involved 10 million children. That's a metadata analysis, usually. They didn't actually go and talk to these children individually. They went through and looked at the trends. This particular population sees this amount of autism happening within their community, and this is the amount of children that are vaccinated. that type of analysis. The metadata papers are useful for that because you can see the trends in larger populations, which is exceedingly important. But if you're not careful and your sample size is too large, you tend to lose the outliers. You know what I mean? And there's something to be said, you kind of want to look at the outliers too. Like, what's going on there? So, because if the average is 10 million kids, you still kind of want to see, but what about these here? And that always brings up a little bit of a doubt, because then they'll go, well, there's these 1 million kids on, 500,000 over here and 500,000 over here. And that's what a lot of the anti-vaxxers focus in on. And that's still a relatively large population. And that's kind of part of their argument. So if you get a study that's too large, it can be counterproductive to a bit in the meta-analysis, because you need to zone in and be like, okay, let's take this study. But now we got these little figures here. We can go and check out what's going on with other things there. So I think it's still cool. They're useful.
See, where was Purple's last? I'm not seeing a question from Purple particularly recently. A couple of statements.
Yeah. America. I'm trying to scroll through and see if I find it.
But yeah, I mean, if you would, I mean, your show is pretty much all viewer requests, and I would love to see a video on how to read a scientific paper.
I can do that.
I can do a plain reading of something, but that doesn't mean I'm going to understand any of the underlying science behind it.
Right. Yeah, I did a local talk. There's a nationwide, and I think it might be worldwide, series called Nerd Night. And so I'm often invited to come out and talk about different things. The first talk I had with Nerd Night was issues with science communication. And then the second talk I had was how to read a scientific paper. And people found that particularly useful, especially if you're starting undergrad or something like that. It's really, really important to be able to take a journal article and just read it. But you can't read it like a magazine. That's the worst way to read a science article. I don't know any professors that read the whole thing. There are specific things that they look for when they're going through and trying to find sample size. Why, if it's 5 people, why bother to read further? Unless it's like a medical type of, this is an isolated case and we can't find any other literature on it, so we're just telling you about it. We don't know what's happening. Maybe one of y'all do. I mean, you have like a medical case where here's a patient X has these symptoms. We thought it was this, but it's not this. It's this weird other thing that we didn't know existed, but now we need to learn about it, So, but, so they look for specific things, sample size. They look for contradiction, or conflicting interests. If it's medication, double-blind study, that sort of thing. So it just really depends on the type of paper that you're reading. That plays a role. If there's heavy terminology involved, that's, you have to go through and highlight, especially in the abstract. The abstract will use words that'll be clues. And if you don't understand what particular words are, then you highlight those and look them up. I've often encountered people who would use a science paper to counter what I said just based on the abstract. When you read the paper, that's not what they were saying. And I'm like, here's this conclusion here. This is what they said. Did you read that? Well, I just read the abstract. Read the abstract to find out what it's about. Look at the method, see what the sample size is. Look at their data. see how they collected their data. And then you go check out their conclusions. Do their conclusions match up with that? And if there's words that you're not familiar with, you need to kind of dig into those and find out what those mean first before you get a bit further. And, to be quite honest, if you just email the person who wrote the article, they'll tell you all about their research. And they usually have a very public email. You can just Google them and find like, hey, I'm reading your paper such and such. Can you tell me a little bit more information about it? And they'll just tell you. So if you want to get more information, I don't think people realize you don't have to pay journal for over the paywall. Just figure out who the authors are. Tag them all. If you're able to email them. Just Google their names, pull them up, find whatever university they're at, email them, and they'll email you back with their information. And they'll probably just send you the article for free. So give that a go. I don't think most people know that. Just email a scientist and like, oh, you saw my paper. Yes, here it is. And they'll just send it to you. Enjoy. Let me know what you think.
I just posted a link to the science of publication and peer review. That's the one you were talking about, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, and if you want to check out, I need to update my website, but I've been yelling at my website provider for a while. I don't know if you follow me on Twitter, but
I do.
Yeah. So, Ninja hosting. Our servers are messed up. We're going to give you a discount for your next billing cycle if you stay with us. I'm like, so you're not going to fix it right now. And you're offering me a discount on stuff that doesn't work. So
yeah.
I don't know how that's going to happen here, friend. So I'm trying to update my website as much as possible. And under resources, scientistmail.com/resources, that's where all of my sources are. So if you're like, where's your evidence, Miss Melody? And I'll be like, scientistmail.com/resources. You can download my entire PowerPoint show that I put on my shows. And I'm like, here, and I have my list of sources. You can download the whole thing, pick it apart, do what you want with it. If you have a talk you want to give, you can use my stuff. You can, if you're a teacher, it's there. I have teachers asking for requests. So, yeah, I do, which makes me, warms my heart a bit. They're like, I just want to give my kids more up, just have them watch your stuff. I'm like, okay, which is fine.
I mean, I went to your website earlier when I was getting all your links, and it looked like it was working for me. So,
yay! Maybe they finally decided to fix their stuff instead of trying to bully me. Just accept it for right now. We haven't hired a server monitor yet. It doesn't happen in 24 hours. I'm like, well, this has been going on for a month and 10 days. How long do you need?
That's excessive, and that's where you stop paying them.
Yes. Well, I paid in advance for a year.
Oh.
Yeah. I paid in advance for a year. And they're like, I'm sorry, we can't refund you for the rest of the time you're on there. I'm like, well, if your service isn't working and I paid for it, yeah, you can refund me and I can go somewhere else. So sort this, or you're going to refund the rest of my contract and then I'm going to go somewhere else. So I guess they fixed it suddenly, magically, through the wonders of me threatening and yelling at them for 4 days on Twitter.
That could very well have been what did it.
You're a very small company. I understand. But I don't have 2,000 views a day on my website. That's a shame, I know. But still, Lord. Come on, man. I had 83 views on like my Peta cup. And I'm like, that's it. That was the whole day. I'm like, I'm pretty certain it's not me.
Well, what I like to do at the start and finish of every interview is have my guests talk about their channel. So could you tell us about your YouTube channel again?
Sure.
And anywhere you appear on the internet, actually.
Okay. Well, if you just Google Scientist Mel, you'll find lots of stuff. So I was kind of lucky to be able to get the website for that. That's my Twitter. That's my Facebook page. I have a Facebook page, so you can hop on there. I have a website, scientistmel.com. I'm on Instagram, but that's scientist_mel. Somebody took the other two together, and I'm like, boo. Anyway, so so I do have an Instagram. I mostly post the trailers on there. So I primarily do just all science stuff on Thursdays. I didn't do a show this past Thursday because I'm overwhelmed right now, but I will do one next Thursday. It's called This Week in BS, which is bad science, where we talk about science as it's misrepresented amongst pseudoscience pushers. So last week we talked about gender dysphoria in children. And is it abuse to let your child explore their gender? So I had Amanda from Brief Brain Facts. She was on my channel. She's been on there a lot. She's wonderful. She is formerly a neuroscientist. So we were talking about me having an educator background and learning and stuff and dealing with kids and parents and all of that, and her having the neuroscience. That was a pretty good talk. Next Thursday, we will be talking about, there's person, I think I love insects or something.
Insects are cool.
Insects are cool. She was meant to be on my show this past Thursday, but I was held over at work for like a really freaking long time. So she's been very kind to reschedule for next Thursday. We're going to talk about bees and pesticides and what you can do to help boost the bee population. So what are the pesticides that are bad? What are the pesticides that are okay and good? So we're going to talk about a lot of the myths associated with that. But I've talked about anti-vaxxers. So Thursday nights are a bit more of my cheeky show. A little more of we take off the kid gloves, but it's not a controversial show. We still keep it to where we're focused on the science. It's not a dumpster fire. It's not a debate channel. I don't do that sort of thing. I want to get the correct information out there. And that's what I use this for, is to try to have, this is where you can find the correct information. I don't want to be threatening. I don't want to be rude. I just want people to be able to say, she's got really, she knows what she's talking about. She's got science content. I prefer to be reputable and trustworthy and say she knows what she's talking about, transparent with my sources, to where people can feel comfortable to ask me questions without going, oh, she's going to call me stupid for thinking this. You won't get that from my channel. You won't get that from me. If you're there to learn with me. And I do learn with my viewers, which is great. That's what we do there. And then on Saturday mornings, 10 a.m. Central, we have our Saturday morning science, because we don't have Saturday morning cartoons anymore. That sucks. So Saturday morning science now. So come check it out. Hop in the chat. And I some people are like, you do talk a lot with people. I do. We conversate isn't a word, guys, but we have a conversation. Talk with each other about what we're discussing. And it's always fun. It's real laid back, easy going. Enjoy your coffee. If it's later on in the day, enjoy your glass of wine while you watch Saturday morning science for me.
Oh. Well, everybody, if you will scroll down to the description box real quick, you will find Mel's Patreon, Twitter, YouTube, and her Scientist Mel website.
Thank you.
Give them all a look. Thanks for coming on. This this has been awesome. We've actually gone over my usual time by about half an hour, but I'm okay with it.
I'm sorry. I will talk.
We were talking science.
That's by talking from Scientist Mel. That is a thing that probably could happen.
Hey, I like science, so I'm about it.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And right now, I do have a special on my Patreon. If you're like $5 or more, I'm going to send you a handwritten postcard. Snail mail. Wow. Maybe I'll write a poem for you. I'll write a science
old school. But yeah, thanks for coming onto my channel again. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having this. Is so much fun. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right, everybody. That is the interview. Thank you for coming. Be sure to leave the video a like and head on over to Mel's channel and learn something. You know, maybe bring the number of people that believe the Earth is the center of the universe down to 0. That would be great.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good one, everybody. See you on the next one.
Bye.